getting the curves right when building basic movement, adding mechanics that introduce very different ways to navigate the space.
Ладно. Напиши, да. Не буду, не гаем. Ладно уж, быстрее. Работу надо мне искать, знаешь, завтра работу все. Ни одна сволочь мне работу не дает. Крадусь, хорошие люди не пользуются. Все, уже 11 людей. Ну, почти что. Спать ложиться не надо. А, так это первый буст. Я знаю, что... Нет. Кто здесь? Кто я? Кто я? Нам до этого не давай, давай. Работать надо, понимаешь, работать надо. Да на, вот оно видео. Ну типа того. Я вас всех проклинаю, понимаешь? Я просто артист. Не знаю, потому что я просто разговариваю сам с собой, я не сам с собой разговариваю вообще. С человеком, конечно, с человеком, просто с телевизором. Какая тебе нахер разница? Ну да, специально это, у вас всех там. Ну да, понимаешь. Да ну вас нахер достал уже просто. Не знаю. Я тебе говорю, я вас всех понимаю, что очень. И не собираюсь и не буду прощать человека. Ну и что? Как бы, ну нет, что мне нравилось, ну нет, работает нормально. Что ты имеешь в виду работать? О чем вообще говоришь? Наоборот, ну нет, нет. Вот нет, наоборот. 3 года назад. Да пошел ты нахер, еще что вспомнишь, еще может вспомнишь, как я, надо было какать в детстве, да, что ты еще скажешь мне еще? Поехали. Грешок это. Что-то я тут типа как бы хотел как будто типа опа. Нет, не опа, не типа.
Using feedback to emphasize movement, being forgiving about pixel precision, increasing the skill ceiling with advanced movement, and not being afraid to test, tweak, and toss away work throughout the lengthy process of getting this stuff right. Thanks so much for watching. There's a post on my Patreon now where I talk more about the run and jump graphs in this episode. And those who back the show at $5 or more can watch the full interview with Matt and Noel.
Ну, значит, игра дошел.
Hey there, I'm Jason, and today I want to talk to you about why I went with game programming over game design for a career. I see the question get asked all the time, should I study game design, should I study game programming, or maybe even study just general programming? And a lot of people seem to be really confused about what the differences are, or what the different jobs actually entail, and what it's like. And today I want to talk about, well, why I went with what I went with, how that kind of happened, which is somewhat accidental. And I want to talk about what designers and programmers do day to day, what the differences are in their jobs, some of the little bit of similarities, and some of the benefits of each side, so you can get a better idea of what's good for you and where you should go. So I want to start with my experience. When I started off in the game industry, I really wanted to be a game designer. I didn't really want to do programming. It wasn't something that was super interesting to me. I knew how to code a little bit. I'd written a little bit of code in some apps, little programs, not phone apps, but like old school DOS apps and Windows apps and G15 apps for my old keyboard to play games, or log parsers to get data on the games that I was playing. But game programming wasn't something I had ever considered. I just kind of assumed like, hey, you have to be like a mega genius to do that stuff. It's way too hard. I'd never be able to do it. And I really like the design side. I want to make, characters and classes and stories and enemies and set up these big giant fights that people can battle in and get together with and have friends in. I really wanted to do MMO design specifically. So I went in for an interview. Oh goodness, I don't remember when it was. It was a long, long time ago though. I went for a game design interview that went actually pretty well, I thought. I don't know, I could have been completely naive and crazy and it was terrible, but it seemed like it went great. And I thought, hey, this is it. I'm gonna maybe become a game designer. I remember I flew down to Las Vegas to go to this game design interview. It was at an event. Went great. And they're like, hey, we're gonna call you next week and talk to you a little bit about it. And I never heard back. I was like, oh, what happened? Like, why didn't I get a call back? And I occasionally email the guy and ping him and stuff. later I found out that almost immediately after that, the guy that I'd been talking to left the company, went somewhere else. So I don't know if it was accidental and just got dropped because hey, things change, and if you leave a company, you don't really care about hiring people for the other one, or if I just totally bombed it and thought I had done much better. So my first game design interview, like I said, went great, but I did not get the job. After that, I decided, well, I'm going to try a little bit more programming stuff. And I went into just software that was not for games. I was still programming little game things for myself, little game tools, but not really actually doing game development or anything. And, well, long story short, that little bit of programming accidentally also led me into a game programming job doing game tools, and things kind of snowballed from there. And I really didn't know it at the time, but game programming was kind of perfect for me because it allowed me to do a lot of things that I never could have been able to do as a game designer, and it gave me a lot of flexibility. It also really played to strengths that I didn't realize I had until kind of fell into the position of, hey, you got to make these things work, figure it out. So let me talk real briefly though about what a game programmer does day to day, and then I want to talk about what a game designer does. So as a programmer, there are quite a few things that you need to do. Depending on the level of programmer that you're at, it's going to vary quite a bit in the specialties and the size of the company. For a small little startup company, like say you're a team of 1 to 3 developers, you're going to be doing all kinds of things. You have to start off with a plan for how you're going to build out the game. How are you going to architect this thing? What are you going to put together? What engine are you going to use? What systems are you going to use? How is everything going to get all tied together? You have to code all of these systems, of course, so you're constantly just writing code in C# or C++, depending on the game engine that you're using. And you need to be learning about these things all the time, too. You can't just learn how to code once and then be done. It's not like it's not a one-and-done type skill. It's something that you're constantly learning at. All good programmers that I know are learning almost something new at least every week, and often something new every day. But a bigger part of what you're doing is working with the game designers and the production team. You're taking their ideas and their documents that they've written, which we'll talk about in just a minute, and you're turning those into actual executing code. You're making it so that their vision comes to life on the screen and in a game and is interactable and fun to play. You also work with artists a lot. Now, depending on the team size, you may or may not work with artists very much. You might be a team where you've got art-specific programmers, and those guys generally work heavily on the graphic side and the art pipeline. It's almost like a specialty in a big company. In smaller companies, again, you'll be doing a bit of that as well, but you'll do less of it or almost none of it if you're in a giant company where you're working on different systems. So one of those other systems I think I should talk about, and one of the easiest ways to get into game programming is doing tools development, which is actually how I started off. I actually started doing QA tools, then moved into design tools, and then moved into design and game, or not really design, but gameplay stuff. So building tools is it's pretty interesting, and it's a lot of fun, and it's relatively easy to do for a new programmer. What you're doing is setting up systems or specific little applications so that the game designers can take their ideas and turn that into data that's either stored in the game or in a database or in some file somewhere. A lot of the time this will be like text files or a SQL or NoSQL server that's got a lot of data there. Sometimes it's just building tools that are like in editor tools. If you use Unity a lot, you'd be building custom Unity editors, tools like that, so that the designers can go in and do their job efficiently. You gotta remember that the designers are not going to be programmers, they're not going to be looking at the code, and they're going to want a nice, simple, fast interface. And that's kind of the key thing as a tool builder or tool developer. You want to build stuff that makes it so that designers can work really, really fast. Making designers fast is really part of your job as a tool developer. You want to make it so that the game can get finished. It's a undervalued, I'd say, and underrated game development job that actually is extremely important and something that is, like I said, relatively easy. Game can get. Making designers fast is really part of your job. Work really, really fast. Developer, you want to build stuff that makes it so that designers can work really, really fast. Making designers fast is really part of your job as a tool developer. You want to make it so that the game can get finished. It's a undervalued, I'd say, and underrated game development job that actually is extremely important and something that is, like I said, relatively easy to get into because most game programmers aren't super interested in tools development. The other thing you can do as there's graphics, there's tools. The other biggest thing that you'll see often is gameplay programming. And that's when you're putting together all of the systems and just building the code for the game, making it so that you move around and stuff animates and characters jump and input works and game systems work and combat stuff systems and just building the code for the game, making it so that you move around and stuff animates and characters jump and input works and game systems work and combat works. You're doing all of the, I would say, more fun and more exciting stuff. I know some people really love the graphic stuff, some people really love tool stuff. I really love gameplay things because I get to make it so that the designer's ideas of how this thing is going to work actually happens and players can play it. So let's talk a little bit about designers. What does a game designer do day to day? It's actually very, very, very different. It's nothing like being a programmer. Game designers generally talk a lot and they write a lot. So they're working with other game designers often to brainstorm out ideas and figure out a general system or flow of how they want things to work and how they want systems to interact. But they're also a lot alone just writing documentation for these ideas. They also need to do a ton of playing games and experiments. To be honest, if you really love playing all kinds of different games and you're like a game addict that wants to go out and try everything, you want to play every different game and you really like seeing all of the differences between the games and you can explain why one game is slightly better than the other because of a certain grab system, game design might be kind of perfect for you because that's the job, right? The job is understanding what's out there, understanding what's fun, and then figuring out how to make the fun appear in the game that you're building on. I mean, really, that's the job of a game designer, is to make the game fun. But there are a lot of other little day-to-day things that you're doing, like communicating with the art team, right? If you're designing things, you're generally coming up with a rough concept of what it is. You're not drawing the things out, but you might be thinking like, hey, these are tomatoes.
Да. Нет, это себе не требует. Нет, ну знаешь, что нет, не себе нужно ходить. Ну ладно. Для меня, короче, да. Все это музыка, ну вот нет, на пианиста надо пианиста.
This is a dinosaur game, and these are the types of dinosaurs that we want. We want something that's kind of like a pterodactyl, but has 6 extra legs or tentacles or something. And you're working with the artists to get concepts done, and then get the final art looking how you expect it to look, so that the world kind of blends together. Of course, you're working with artists a lot on the art style, and they have a lot of input and direction on it, but you're still coming up with the core things that are actually in the game. So you're designing what the objects are, what the levels are, what the characters are. You're also implementing some of that stuff. So at the base level, think of level design. You have to create levels. You might be drawing out maps on paper or on a computer at first, and then they're getting put into the game by artists or by designers sometimes.
Что нам хотелось говорить?
Hey, this video is brought to you by Squarespace. Thanks, Squarespace. Yay. Hey! Wow! Hi, I see you there. Thank you for watching this video. My name is Thomas Bresch. I'm the creator of a game called Neversong and also a game called Pinstripe. Both of those games you can check out in the links in the description. And if you want to learn how I made those games for pretty much every platform on the planet and how I make games full-time, you can check out fulltimegamedev.com. It's an online course that I'm creating. It's really cool, guys. Click the links in the description. Okay, so today I want to talk about something that's really exciting, really dear to my heart, and that is, are publishers actually necessary as an indie game developer? Do we need publishers anymore in the year of 2020 and beyond? Well, I had a really good conversation with a good friend of mine named David Whaley. And David's kind of on the fence about publishers, whereas I'm kind of all good with publishers. I tend to work with publishers and I enjoy it, and it's fun, and it makes things a lot easier as an indie game developer. So let's take a look at this clip and really get a refresher. And honestly, guys, David's smarter than me, so you should really listen to David. Oh, and by the way, have you clicked that like button? Or maybe just given it a little tickle? Just tickle that like button. Thank you. That would really mean a lot to me. Let's go.
Мы стали ближе. Доставка из Стройландии с Яндекс Такси. Оформляйте заказ на сайте и получайте товары уже через 2 часа после покупки. Стройландия. Все выгодное рядом. Подробности на сайте.
Okay, guys, before we get started, this video is brought to you by Squarespace. Believe it or not, I've been wanting Squarespace as a sponsor for so long, mainly because Squarespace is awesome. I've been using Squarespace for, I think, 6 years. Both my websites, thomasbresch.com and atmosgames.com, where I host my games and my portfolio, my resume, all that cool stuff is hosted on Squarespace. It was created with Squarespace. Squarespace is cool because you can look amazing, you can have custom designs, and pretty much do anything you need to do for your business or your own personal brand, all with Squarespace, and you don't have to know how to code. So if you guys are interested in creating a website with Squarespace, click the link below, squarespace.com/ThomasBresch, and use the promo code ThomasBresch for 10% off. Yay! Yay! I love Squarespace, I really do. Thanks, Squarespace.
You know, and this reminds me of something that I love, you know, celebrating our similarities. Me and Thomas Bresch, I think that's cool. We have so much, we have so much, you know, that's similar. But I think the biggest difference between us is you're very experienced and you're very, like, publisher driven. And I tell people exactly the opposite. I say to people, you do not need a publisher. Right. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on, like, you're a big cheerleader for publishers and for the smaller publishers, and I feel like I'm the opposite, where I'm like, publishers, they're a middleman. You can self-publish on consoles by yourself. You don't need them.
Well, it depends, right? So, and then I would love to hear your opinion, the other side of it. So for me, publishers provide two things, and these are not traditional things. Traditionally, a publisher provides you with marketing, distribution, blah blah blah. Mm-hmm. That's not really what a publisher, in my opinion, should be offering you as a game developer. Because you don't really need, you don't really need someone to help you with distribution, in quotes. Mm-hmm. Like, that's basically a glittering generality that means nothing now. Because Steam is handling your distribution. Switch is handling your distribution. If you were selling books, you would need help. But you're not selling books, you're selling digital copies, little keys of your game. Right. So what a publisher, for me, where a publisher provides value is they give you money so that you can quit your job so you don't have to be miserable. That's the first part. So $50,000 to like $200,000, bang, in your account, and you can get started. They're going to take 30% of your revenue or 50% or whatever, but at least you can quit your job and make your game twice as fast.
Full time.
Right.
Yeah.
Full time with so basically you're working for a publisher now, right?
Yeah.
And then what they're going to do is they're going to recoup that. So not only are they going to take 40%, they're also going to recoup it up. So when I launched Pinstripe, I had to recoup a certain amount of money that I can't disclose. Mm-hmm. And it was so painful because it was like 4 months of not making any of that money. But I realized, I was like, well, at least I was able to quit my job and finish this thing, because I wouldn't have finished it otherwise, you know? So that's the first step, or the first reason why I love publishers is just money. So basically, they're just investors, really. They're not really publishing, they're just investing.
So the big number one thing is like the freedom to focus full time on your game.
Yep, and you get rid of that misery. And so, like, now the question is, well, Thomas, why do you want to work with publishers again when you said you were in a really good position financially? Well, I'm only going to work with a publisher if they can provide developers. So in a sense, I'm not really partnering with publishers anymore. I'm partnering with developers that work at a publisher. So that's why I love Serenity Forge. Serenity Forge handles publishing and they handle development if you're willing to negotiate a reasonable revenue share. I've come to discover that sometimes almost half of the revenue is reasonable because they cut your development time down. You don't have to worry about all of these different variables about making a game because they're handling a huge boulder of development that you otherwise couldn't do, you know? So that's my only two reasons.
That makes sense. It's just interesting. There's so many ways to go around it because I like, I don't know, I like staying independent. Did I tell you I had big publishers approach me for the first tree. One was so big, I don't even know if I can say it, but they do AAA games. And I was so freaked out by it because I was like, oh, this could be life-changing. But then I started thinking about it and how I liked the hobbyist aspect of it and how like I didn't have to answer to anybody. I think what's cool about your deal with Serenity Forge is you're the creative director. Like you have full creative control. Is that right? I've signed 3 publisher agreements in the past. One of them I got completely screwed over, and I learned my lesson, right? And I had an attorney for all 3, and so the first attorney was like, for the first publishing agreement, was like, Thomas, be careful of all of these things, and I ignored him and just signed anyway. That was a terrible agreement. The other two that I signed, my attorney was like, you've got to tell them that you're in complete control of everything. And I said, okay. And so I told the publisher, I told Armor Games and Serenity Forge, and this is fine, they wouldn't mind me telling you. I told them that I was in complete control. And they were like, we trust you. I don't know why. Wow, that's awesome. That's like a dream team.
Yeah. No, it's amazing. And so it wasn't just control of the art or the game. It was control of the schedule. Everything. So, like, I didn't even have a schedule in the contract. A lot of publishers will be like, and you know, this is fair. If I was a publisher, I would demand this. I would say, look, if I'm going to give you $100,000, you need to get the game done in a year. Like, I can't just sit here and wait for 4 years to get my money back. So I get that from a publisher perspective. But the publishers I've worked with, Serenity Forge and Armor Games, I connected really well with the CEOs. Like, we're like friends. Like, I text Armor Games CEO all the time. Serenity Forge's CEO, his name is Z.
He's the man.
He's awesome.
He's so nice.
He's so great, and he's probably we're all kind of the same age, I think. So we sort of are in a similar age group, and we just, at least me and Z, I mean, we connect really well.
Jive.
We just jive, and so there wasn't a need for him to go, well, I want you to have the game done in, a year, and I want this is what the budget is, and I want to have, a say in the creative direction. He didn't say any of that. He just said, make a great game, Thomas, and here's a developer to help you out. And to me,
Cool. That's awesome.
That is a really great deal. And when I signed the deal with Serenity Forge, I was like, wait, is this a bad idea? Because I gave up a good chunk of revenue. And over the years, I learned this was the best thing that could have happened. Because we made a really good game with the help of Eric, who was the developer, the coder. Eric programmed an amazing game, and I was able to focus all my attention on what I do well.
Right.
And we partnered with Apple. We got a front page on Steam for 5 days. We're about to launch on Switch and
That's amazing.
and a few other platforms.
That's
So it just
an indie
worked out.
success. That's an indie success by far.
Yeah, and so I want to know your perspective on things, though. Like, do you feel like if a publisher would have said, "I want you to have full creative control," would you have considered signing with them?
Oh man, that's an interesting question. I'm thinking about how it worked out for you and how it's been great. Here's something I do want to say. This is to everybody listening. If it's your very first game and you're just getting out of, you're just finally entering this whole new world of game development, and you get a bunch of publishers that you've never heard of saying, "Hey,